Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master on Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 21, Text 36. Aho mamhami vitaranchanugraham harim kurum yagya bujam adishvaram svadharma yogena yajanti mamaka nirantaram kshoni tale dhritavrata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master and enjoyer of the results of all sacrifices, and he is the supreme spiritual master as well. All of you citizens on the surface of the globe who have a relationship with me and are worshiping him by dint of your occupational duties are bestowing your mercy upon me. Therefore, O my citizens, I thank you. Purport. Maharaj Pṛthu's advice to his citizens to take to devotional service is now concluded in two ways. He has repeatedly advised persons who are neophytes to engage themselves in devotional service according to the capacities of the different orders of social and spiritual life. But here he specifically thanks those already engaged in such devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is actually the enjoyer of all sacrificial ceremonies, and who is also the supreme teacher as Antaryami, or Paramatma. There is specific mention of the word Gurum, which indicates the Supreme Personality as Chaitya Guru. The Supreme Godhead in his Paramatma feature is present in everyone's heart, and he is always trying to induce the individual soul to surrender unto him and to engage in devotional service. Therefore, he is the original spiritual master. He manifests himself as spiritual master both internally and externally to help the conditioned soul both ways. Therefore, he has been mentioned herein as Gurum. It appears, however, that in the time of Maharaj Pṛthu, all the people on the surface of the globe were his subjects. Most of them, in fact, almost all of them, were engaged in devotional service. Therefore, he thanked them in a humble way for engaging in devotional service, and thus bestowing their mercy upon him. In other words, in the state where the citizens and the head of state are engaged in devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they help one another and are mutually benefited. Text 37. Majatu teja prabhavin maharadvis titikshaya tapasa vidyaya cha dedipyamane jita devatanam kules svayam raja kuladvijanam. The Brahmanas and Vaishnavas are personally glorified by their characteristic powers of tolerance, penance, knowledge, and education. By dint of all these spiritual assets, Vaishnavas are more powerful than royalty. It is therefore advised that the priestly order not exhibit its material prowess before these two communities and should avoid offending them. Purport. Pṛthu Maharaj has explained in the previous verse the importance of devotional service for both rulers and the citizens of the state. Now he explains how one can be steadily fixed in devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, while instructing Srila Rupa Goswami, has compared the devotional service of the Lord with a creeper. A creeper has a feeble stem and requires the support of a tree to grow. and while growing it requires sufficient protection so that it may not be lost. While describing the system of protection for the creeper of devotional service, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has especially stressed protection from offenses unto the lotus feet of Vaishnavas. Such offenders are called Vaishnav Aparad. Aparad means offense. If one commits Vaishnav Aparads, all of his progress in devotional service will be checked. Even though one is very much advanced in devotional service, if he commits offenses at the feet of a Vaishnava, his advancement is all spoiled. In the Shastras, it is found that a very great yogi, Durvasa Muni, committed a Vaishnava aparad and thus for 1 full year had to travel all over the universe, even to Vaikuntha Loka, to defend himself from the offense. At last, when he approached the Supreme Personality of Godhead in Vaikuntha, he was refused protection. Therefore, one should be very careful about committing offenses at the feet of a Vaishnava. The most grievous type of Vaishnava aparad is called Gauravaparad, which refers to offenses at the lotus feet of the spiritual master. In the chanting of the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this Gauravaparad is considered the most grievous offense. Gurur Avagya Shruti Shastra Nindanam, from the Padma Purana. Among the 10 offenses committed against the chanting of the holy name, the first offenses are disobedience of the spiritual master and blasphemy of the Vedic literature. The simple definition of Vaishnav is given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A person who immediately reminds one of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is a Vaishnav. In this verse, both Vaishnavas and Brahmanas are mentioned. A Vaishnava is a learned Brahmana and is therefore designated as Brahmana Vaishnava, Brahmana Pandita, or as a Vaishnava and Brahmana. In other words, a Vaishnava is supposed to be a Brahmana already, but a Brahmana may not be a pure Vaishnava. When a person understands his pure identity, Brahmajanati, he immediately becomes a Brahmana. In the Brahmana stage, one's understanding of the absolute truth is mainly based on the impersonal view. When a Brahmana, however, rises to the platform of personal understanding of the Supreme Godhead, he becomes a Vaishnav. A Vaishnav is transcendental even to a Brahmana. In the material conception, the person of a Brahmana is the highest in human society, but a Vaishnava is transcendental even to a Brahmana. Both the Brahmana and the Vaishnava are spiritually advanced. A Brahmana's qualifications are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as truthfulness, mental equanimity, control of the senses, the power of tolerance, simplicity, knowledge of the absolute truth, firm faith in the scriptures, and practical application of the Brahminical qualities in life. In addition to all these qualifications, when one fully engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord, he becomes a Vaishnava. Pṛthu Maharaj warns his citizens who are actually engaged in the devotional service of the Lord to take care against offenses to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Offenses at their lotus feet are so destructive that even the descendants of Yadu, who were born in the family of Lord Krishna, were destroyed due to their offenses at their feet. The Supreme Personality of Godhead cannot tolerate any offenses at the lotus feet of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Sometimes, due to their powerful positions, princes or government servants neglect the position of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, not knowing that because of their offense they will be ruined. Text 38. Brahmanya deva purusha puratano nityam hariryach charanabi vandanat avapa lakshmim anapayinim yaso jagat pavitram cha mahatamagrani. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ancient, eternal Godhead, who is foremost amongst all great personalities, obtained the opulence of his staunch reputation, which purifies the entire universe, by worshipping the lotus feet of those Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Purport. The Supreme Person is described herein as Brahmanya Deva. Brahmanya refers to the Brahmanas, the Vaishnavas, or the Brahminical culture, and Deva means worshipable Lord. Therefore, unless one is on the transcendental platform of being a Vaishnava or on the highest platform of material goodness as a Brahmana, he cannot appreciate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the lower stages of ignorance and passion, it is difficult to appreciate or understand the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the Lord is described herein as the worshipable deity for persons in Brahminical and Vaishnava culture. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagaditaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Nama. Vishnu Purana 1.19.65. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the prime protector of Brahminical culture and the cow. Without knowing and respecting these, one cannot realize the science of God, and without this knowledge, any welfare activities or humanitarian propaganda cannot be successful. The Lord is Purusha, or the Supreme Enjoyer. Not only is he the enjoyer when he appears as a manifested incarnation, but he is the enjoyer since time immemorial, from the very beginning, Puratana, and eternally, Nityam. Yachcharna Bhivanadat. Yachcharna Bhivandanat. Pṛthu Maharaj said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead attained his opulence of eternal fame simply by worshipping the lotus feet of the Brahmanas. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the Lord does not need to work to achieve material gain. Since he is perpetually, supremely perfect, he does not need to obtain anything. But still it is said that he obtained his opulences by worshipping the lotus feet of the Brahmanas. These are his exemplary actions. When Lord Sri Krishna was in Dwarka, he offered his respects by bowing down at the lotus feet of Narada. When Sudam Vipra came to his house, Lord Krishna personally washed his feet and gave him a seat on his personal bed. Although he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna offered his respects to Maharaj Yudhisthira and Kunti. The Lord's exemplary behavior is to teach us. We should learn from his personal behavior how to give protection to the cow, how to cultivate Brahminical qualities, and how to respect the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita 3.21, Yad yad acharati shrestas tad tad eve tarojana. If the leading personalities behave in a certain manner, others follow them automatically. Who can be more of a leading personality than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and whose behavior could be more exemplary? It is not that he needed to do all these things to acquire material gain, but all of these acts were performed just to teach us how to behave in this material world. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described herein as Mahatma Agrani. Mahatma Agrani. Within this material world, the Mahatmas, or the great personalities, are Lord Buddha and Lord Shiva. Are Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. But he is above them all. Narayana Paro Vyaktat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is in a transcendental position, above everything created within this material world. His opulence, his riches, his beauty, his wisdom, his knowledge, his renunciation, and his reputation are all Jagat Pavitram, universally purifying. The more we discuss his opulences, the more the universe becomes purer and purer. In the material world, the opulences possessed by a material person are never fixed. Today, one may be a very rich man, but tomorrow he may become poor. Today, one is very famous, but tomorrow he may be infamous. Materially obtained opulences are never fixed, but all 6 opulences perpetually exist in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not only in the spiritual world, but also in this material world. Lord Krishna's reputation is fixed, and his book of wisdom, Bhagavad Gita, is still honored. Everything pertaining to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally existing. Text 39. Yat sevaya sesha guhashaya svarad vipra priyastushati kamam ishvara tad eva tad dharma paravinitai sarvatmana brahma kulam nishevyatam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is everlastingly independent and who exists in everyone's heart, is very pleased with those who follow in his footsteps and engage without reservation in the service of the descendants of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. For he is always dear to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and they are always dear to him. Purport. It is said that the Lord is most pleased when he sees one engaged in the service of his devotee. He does not need any service from anyone because he is complete. But it is in our own interest to offer all kinds of service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These services can be offered to the Supreme Person not directly, but through the service of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. Srila Narottam Das Thakur sings, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payechikeva, which means that unless one is serving the Vaishnavas and Brahmanas, one cannot get liberation from the material clutches. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur also says, Yasya Prashadat Bhagavat Prashada. By satisfying the senses of the spiritual master, one can satisfy the senses of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus, this behavior is not only mentioned in scriptures, but also followed by acharyas. Pṛthu Maharaj advised his citizens to follow the exemplary behavior of the Lord himself, and thus engage in the service of Brahmanas and Vaishnavas. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 40 on Friday. Were there any comments or questions from the assembled devotees?
Prabhu, anagrahi, Mahatma anagrahi means anagrahi?
Let's check.
No.
Yes,
30, verse 38.
38.
Yeah. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is described herein as Mahatma Agranahi.
Yes. So, described
No,
herein as Mahatma Grana. So, Mahatma. Okay, so that's the last word of the verse. Yeah, so Mahatma means great soul. Maha, great, and Atma is the
yeah.
soul. And then Agranahi means foremost. So it's like the best of the great souls.
The best. Oh,
The best of the great souls.
yes.
Yeah.
Very important.
That is That is Gurudev. Gurudev is Mahatma Agrani. The best of the great souls is our spiritual master who gives us an opportunity to serve in the line of Srimati Radharani. That's Mahaprabhu's conception.
So reference is Gurudev.
Gurudev, of course. No, there is no greater soul in this world than Gurudev.
Yeah.
Jai Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti, Madhava Puri, Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Rupanuga, Guru Varga Ki Jai. All
Jai.
glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktivedanta Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai,
Jai.
Nishinapali Dham Ki Jai,
Jai.
Mayapur Dham Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai,
Jai.
Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri
Jai.
Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Shyam
Jai.
Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi
Jai.
Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai,
Jai.
Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai,
Jai.
Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri
Jai.
Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai, Sri
Jai.
Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai,
Jai.
Nitai Gauda Premanandi,
Hari
Hari Hari
Bol.
Hari
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 Bol.
Bol. Jai Srimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai,
Jai.
Srimad Ananda Krishna Prabhu Ki Jai, Hari Bol.
श्रीपाद कृष्ण केशव प्रभु जी की जय
Jai.
जय
Hare Krishna.
Dandavat to everyone.
दंडवत
Dandavats.
धन्यवाद